Brianna, and I'm a mom of a 6-year-old girl.
Hi, I'm Emily, and I'm the mom of a 2-year-old little boy.
Hi, I'm Veronica. I'm the mom of a 16-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old and 10-year-old sons.
Hi, I'm Jody. I am a mom of a 34-year-old son and a 32-year-old daughter.
What are your rhythms and everyday activities to teach your children about the love and grace of God in an everyday way?
I think in our household, the rhythms aren't as intentional as our conversations can be. I know with each of my kids, the most value I've found is them bringing to me a real world experience, either with friends or with school, or something they've encountered with a family member, and being able to talk through those things with them through conversation, sometimes through discipline if there's something that they need to be held to account to, and always bringing them back to why we believe what we believe based on biblical principle, why we either hold boundaries we have or give grace in certain situations, or um, choosing patience if it has to do with one another. And for my husband and I, the conversation is never something that we see as having an end. It's something that we always see as keeping it open with them, and a continuation, just from circumstances to circumstance, and then drawing back. Do you remember when we talked about this situation? Here are some of the same principles that apply to this, and then always leaving the responsibility with them, that they are responsible unto the Lord for how they behave, the choices that they make, and really developing in them that their relationship with the Lord is their own, and their dad and I can only ever guide them to that, and show them Jesus, but it's up to them to take those steps and be the hands and feet of Christ for themselves to the world. So
Our rhythms have completely changed because our kids are out of the house now. So I think, what is daily rhythms? I think when they were in the house, I mean, certainly so much of being, making space and creating opportunity, especially when they're young, they're older, when they're little. But even so, creating space for them to be able to talk, to be curious, to ask questions, to make time to be able to sit and dialogue about whatever was going on. I think for me, that was so important to maintain that availability. We get so busy. So I think that's really important. And I think carving out table fellowship, family time is huge. Because even now, with adult children, what they look forward to is coming home and breaking bread together and sitting around the table and talking and just breaking down life. And I think that starts when your kids are younger, and just really guarding that time as a daily rhythm.
Yeah, I agree. I think, meals together is something that I definitely do in my house too with Kalea. Having just silence in between bites, and then you just see what comes out, like what's troubling her, where's her head at, what's she confused about. She's starting to really get to this point where she's asking a lot of questions, and it's so great because she's curious and she's seeking. And so, in any ways that we can relate back to just current matters that are happening in her life, as navigating what starting school looks like, and with other kids, and she's starting to experience like her first hurts, like from other people. And just having open conversations through that have been really, really helpful and impactful.
I'm so excited to get to that conversation point.
Yes.
Obviously, I'm not there with a 2-year-old, but I'm hoping to create rhythms and practices that allow for that, right? So thinking about this, both myself and his dad are really going to be my son's model for Christ's love and for God's love. And I think that I'm trying to remind myself that the way that I treat him in daily day life, the ways that I model interactions with people, the time that I spend sitting with him, playing with Play Doh and interacting are all setting up that model of what does it mean for present love? What does it mean for God to love me? For him to hopefully make that connection one day of, if this is the love that I felt from my parents, how much more magnified is that from the love that I have from my Heavenly Father, right? And so I love the intentional conversations that will come, the space that you get to make, and the ways that you can fiercely protect that. But I also am really just loving the opportunities to have him feel it, like the air that he's breathing,
Yeah.
to have it just be so natural to him that it feels like second nature.
I think when my children were younger, thinking back to toddlerhood and some rhythms that I set very intentionally with them, also centered around follow through and what, not discipline in a negative connotation, but just discipline in our household look like. That when, like you were saying, you are their first encounter with what the love of Christ is going to look like. A friend of mine taught me that you are also their first opportunity to practice obedience and submission to God. And you are that voice to them first. They learn to submit to the voice of authority with their parents. And if you don't instill that expectation and then give weight and expect respect to the words that you are giving to them, they have a much harder time later in their life submitting unto God those parts of themselves. And so setting those rhythms where your yes is a yes, but your no means no, and the follow through with either consequences or rewards really give respect to what your words are. And so when they are, as adults or older kids, following the word of the Lord and learning to listen to what his voice sounds like to them and submitting to that, it's because they practice that at home. You're not setting them up to try to figure out this abstract thing with God. It's something they've practiced already with you. And then you transition them over to like, okay, you listen to my voice, but now you're going to listen to God's. Now you're going to follow his guidance. Now you're going to submit to his authority. And they have those rhythms in place already because they got to practice them with you. And how much greater are they when they get to surrender that to God? It's so much more rewarding. Have you had to navigate doubts or struggles with your faith during your parenting journey? And how did you navigate it? Wow. Yes. I think the doubts are endless. Either when you're doubting yourself in a moment of weakness and you've overreacted to something, or you know that there was something with your children that you just didn't handle as well as you wanted to, and even the doubts that you have, struggles outside of parenting, and your kids, they're just so aware and tuned in, and they can see when those disruptions are happening with you. And it's very hard to be vulnerable with your children observing, because we always want to set this great example for them. And when you fail in those areas, at least for me, when I fail in those areas, it's very humbling and hard to practice self-forgiveness, because I I want my kids to feel stability. I want my kids to see the love of God when I parent them, when I'm with them. And most of the time, instead, they encounter humanity.
Mm.
And so the doubts are, I think they can serve as countenance, and then it's what you choose to do with that. I think you can either give in to shame and then just get derailed, or you can choose humility. And at least for myself, I try to go to my children and apologize if that is needed, or explain to them the struggle that I'm having, if it's age appropriate to share with them, if it's something that is appropriate to share with them, what the struggle is. And sometimes I'm very raw in explaining that I don't really have an answer. And sometimes it's like, I know what my goal is, and that's, my North Star, but I'm super not there yet. And I'm going to go cry for like an hour. So
Mm.
I think for me, I, th- I think those doubts are so real for being a parent. And I think that's part of that place with anything that we come back to, like, God, I can't do this without you.
Mhm.
I need you. And so we're confronted with our limitations.
yes.
And in the same light, there's something really powerful, I think, to be able to share with your kids. Hey, I'm sorry. Or, I remember when my oldest was leaving the nest. He was 18. And as he was stepping out, and oh my gosh, I cried so much. And I just said, you know what? I've never been here before.
Yeah.
I've never been here before. I'm navigating through this with you. And I think being able to have those honest conversations, to be able to model for your kids that sense of vulnerability. Hey, I don't have this all figured out, but we're working together, and I love you, and yet I'm still learning and growing. It's a lifelong journey. And I think there's something really powerful for your kids, even when they're little, to be able to say, I made a mistake, I'm sorry, or I don't know, let's figure that out together.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things, I think, makes room. And my kids will say, I blew it so many times. But I think that's one of the things that I think about a lot in terms of what does it look like to show our humanity and our limitations and model that for our kids, that they feel that freedom. It's okay to make mistakes, or it's okay to have those doubts. And this is, again, the safe space so that we can figure it out together.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like with my son being so young, obviously there are day-to-day struggles. He is a toddler. He is learning to say no. He is learning to distinguish himself as a person. And there are big emotions and challenges that come with it. But right now for me, there's just so much wonder
Yes.
and so much just amazement about how his brain is working and changing and growing, and little mannerisms that he'll pick up, that parenting right now is just like a reminder of how good God is and how amazing it is that our bodies and our brains work the way that they do, and how quickly they can develop and how slowly they can at the same time. But I feel a lot of doubt often in my faith in trusting God in the process and in the timing too. I felt that a lot personally in trying to have my son, and that was something that I had to place in God's hands of, I know that your timing is going to be perfect. And it was. And it's good to have that as a reminder. And I definitely feel like I'm having that currently, like as we think about planning our family, it can be really hard to give that trust to God as well. And I am definitely at a space in my life where I'm struggling with that and have experienced some loss and what I was hoping for. And just have to look back on the ways that I've seen that he has been faithful and the timing has been perfect. and know that even though I have some doubt right now, his timing will continue to be perfect for our family. So,
It's a journey.
yeah.
Yeah, I am a single parent, and I've always been a single parent, and that has like exponentially grown my faith, and I think it is through this like complete vulnerability in God. I mean, like stripped down to like, Kiana, like you need me. And so yeah, struggles every day. Every day is like a reminder of he holds the plan. He has it figured out because it's actually impossible for me to. I'm outnumbered in all the ways. And so yeah, just complete dependence and trust, and in that tethering, especially when you want to be this like strong, independent person, is such a tug of war. And so yeah, just like motherhood is just so amazing how like you do have to be on the front lines in so many ways, yet you are the child. And so yeah, just approaching parenting while I myself am learning at light speed. And so yeah, just embracing that and embracing that it will continue, and that's the way it's supposed to be, probably.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
There's that song way back in the 80s by a musician, Twyla Paris, but I will never forget that because the song was "The Warrior is a Child." And I think about that, you know, we are on the front lines as parents and mothers. You're a warrior, but you're a child. And I love that. It's that juxtaposition.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think everything about parenthood breaks you down from who you were before you had that little human. And it's this beautiful transformation if you allow God to use it. I have witnessed people who choose not to allow God to use it, and they really struggle against losing themselves in the process of parenthood. And I think that there is design to it. I think that it's this amazing opportunity to embody what dying to yourself looks like. I think we like to romanticize it and think it's this one experience thing, and then we've done it and we're made new, and then we keep going on. But parenthood is this daily grind, and you get to die to yourself again and again and again, and in a million different ways. And embracing the grief of that and understanding that there is purpose to it, and then allowing yourself to become the new thing, the new creation, simultaneously dying in another way. I think that it has created me to be a far better version of who I was before parenthood. And it doesn't mean I don't grieve the loss. It doesn't mean there isn't doubt in mid-process, or even doubt about the future. But I like who I am now a whole lot more than I used to like who I am. And I'm assuming since I'm mid-parenting, there's going to be a whole lot more self-death to become someone even cooler, hopefully, in the future, I would hope. But it is it's sanctifying. It really is.
Yeah.
That whole letting go of control piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, we think we have control.
Uh-huh.
Really don't.
No.
It is so turbulent too, because they have a phrase for that transformation, and it's matrescence.
Okay.
And it's similar to adolescence. If you think about an adolescent, like there's this whole puberty process of like not only is your body changing, but your mind is changing, your brain and your neurons are making these connections, and the same thing happens when you become a mom. And I think it's so important to acknowledge those growing pains.
Yes.
Because I know that as a new mom myself, it was kind of like, what is happening right now, right? You're like, everything's going to be fine. I'm just going to have a baby, and then I'll keep hanging out with friends and doing what I need to. And then all of a sudden you have people reaching out and saying like, oh, how are you doing? And how do you say like, I'm a mess, you know, like
I don't know who I am.
Yes, exactly. I don't have the capacity anymore. And even if I did, the things that I have to focus on are so different than what they used to be. And I'm hoping I'm coming out of the trenches, although I'm sure there will be more ways that I'm in it and continue to die to self. But I think it's not talked about enough of being a parent is hard, which we know, but it's not only hard because you have to care for someone, but sometimes it means you have to give a little less care to yourself, or give care to yourself in a way that you didn't expect to, or it just has to change from how you used to treat yourself, if that makes sense.
Or like she said, I've never done this before.
Mhm.
And really every stinking step is in more, haven't done this before. That doesn't seem to stop.
Yeah, even when they're older and they're out of the house, I haven't done this before.
Yeah.
You know, how do I parent? How do I become the person that supports my adult children the best at this time of their life?
Right.
And so you were constantly evolving. And the other piece of this too that I think is so interesting is that in that reality of lack of control, I'm confronted with the worst version of myself. You know, I mean, that's the other piece of this that then becomes sanctifying.
Yeah.
To your point, because I think that there have been, I am going to make my point. I'm going to, I'm going to win this. I'm the authority. There have been times of that over the years, and these are two strong-willed people too. And how do I, what does this really look like? And is this really about me being the authority, or is there something else that I'm projecting onto my child? And so there have been times where I've had to really step back, and God has really shown me some things that this really isn't about them. No, it's about me. And having to come back again then and say, I was wrong. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
So that whole piece as well is the journey. Oh, what verses or stories have been meaningful in your journey as a parent?
I don't think Advent was as meaningful to me as it was until I was a new parent. And there was just a new image of Mary being a pregnant mother, and then having to go through labor and then caring for a newborn baby, and the waiting, first of all, and the Advent season and the anticipation took on a whole new life after becoming a parent and walking through those 39 weeks and being aware of every moment and looking towards what was coming next. And I think just looking at Mary as a mother in the whole story of Christ, raising an infant, having to run away to Egypt to protect your child, losing your 12-year-old, oh my gosh, and then eventually having to lose your child and to see them pass. Obviously, a lot of these are stages that I'm not at yet personally, but if I can imagine the ounces of love that I have for my 2-year-old right now and the ways that those are going to grow, she becomes so much more personified for me. It feels so much more personal. Jesus gets to become more real to me in a whole new way, in that he was a child before he grew up to go into his ministry.
I've lost a 12-year-old. It really sucks. It was at Costco, and it was there for
Oh,
3
no.
days. It was for like 30 minutes. but
Yeah.
I didn't like it.
Yeah. Mary, we feel you.
Yeah, that it's a rough time.
Yeah.
The one that keeps coming back to me is in Hebrews, and I'm not going to remember the chapter now that I'm put on the spot, but it's just that whole idea of, the good shepherd work in our hearts what's well pleasing to you. And I think that's just something that I've kind of integrated into a prayer at whatever stage. Lord, work in their hearts what's pleasing to you. And that reminder that is his job, that he's working in them, and I get to come alongside. I don't know, that one has just guided me through and kind of framed a perspective at times where that tendency to want to, again, control, that's one that's kind of helped me and guided me.
I don't think I'm fully grasping the concept, but parenthood has helped in the understanding of grace, just in general, I would say. And then especially you have your child and literally they couldn't do anything and your love would not shake. And we probably would truly mean that. I mean, anything. I tell my daughter every night, like, there's nothing you could do that would make me not love you. And there's nothing that you could do that would make God not love you. And wholeheartedly believing it now that I'm a parent. Before then, I don't know if I really like believed it when I heard those words. And even now I struggled thinking like, really, God loves me, all of me, the terrible parts of me. And logically now I know it's true because you're a parent.
Yeah.
And I know it. That statement is true. And so, yeah, grasping that now, I'm still obviously coming into terms with it. I need to step into it more. Like, yes, God's grace for me. But that has been probably one of the reoccurring themes and that keeps coming up and has helped in a lot of ways just embody like self-love and that God loves you as more than you could even love your kid.
It's profound
Mm-hmm.
in a whole new way, isn't it, of understanding when you become a parent.
How did your partnership or marriage change, if applicable? And how have you balanced a relationship with your children while ensuring that the relationship with your spouse is strong?
I think it comes back to refinement and sanctification. I think that, again, there's nothing that will put you in a more raw position in your marriage than parenting. And really, for people who aren't married, co-parenting, you will not ever be in a more raw position with another human being. Kids have this ability to, we were talking about mirrors earlier, hold these mirrors up to yourself and their other parent and can make you feel very vulnerable in a way that I think a marriage partnership doesn't quite get to the root of. I think you can still hold on to a little bit of a shell with your partner, but when you are parenting, there is just something miraculously vulnerable and raw about it. And learning to give grace to your partner when they make choices that might not be the same choice that you have made. Learning to have those conversations with respect when you do need to discuss disagreements, or you need to come to some kind of what am I trying to say? Not collaborating, but just yeah, when both of you need to figure out what what to do, there are just some situations that come up that neither one of you have an immediate answer for, and sometimes it is this. It can really rub on some triggers, and trying to parent outside of those triggers, especially if you and your partner or their other parent is experiencing those at the same time, it can just be very delicate to try to navigate. And so I guess compromise is the word I'm looking for. Sometimes you do have to compromise and say, I don't think I have the answer to this right now. Do you have any input? I think the disagreements were the hardest part for my husband and I to work through. But again, we made the choice to see them as an opportunity to learn, to have conversation, and even if one situation we couldn't come to an agreement with, ultimately the goal for our family, we could always come and find agreement in that. And sometimes your focus can't be situational. Sometimes your focus has to stay a little bit more broad. But nothing could have brought us closer. There is now an intimacy between my husband and I because we have walked this parenting journey alongside one another. And we still have disagreements. We probably, that is what we have the most disagreements about is parenting situations. Or I know that's when my husband has seen me at my most vulnerable and agitated, is when something has come up with the kids that is really triggering something in me. And it's an opportunity for him to show me grace, which ultimately builds more trust, which builds more intimacy, and vice versa. There's times he's agitated and I've screwed it up. I have not come alongside. I have disagreed and held a mistake over him and seen that do some damage, and finding the opportunities even within disagreement to foster support and demonstrate my love to him. It's what is it? Rising tides raises all ships. It's like when I bring love and support into I would say volatile situation, especially because we're raising a teenager. There's so many volatile situations right now. It really bolsters something in him. I see it build confidence in him, and it is a gift to give that to your partner or to your co-parent, because you're just so vulnerable when you're raising another human being, and it really is this beautiful opportunity, if you let it be, to build into your spouse as they are also very in a vulnerable situation, parenting as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think co-parenting probably does illuminate our own family cultures that we bring in. to the relationship and our own approaches. This is how I was raised, and this is how I was raised. And I think I don't know statistically, I would think it's not uncommon that there's a lot of conflict as parents about how we going to my way's the right way, or this is how how I was raised. So what am I saying? I think I've learned this later in life, but I do think that any opportunity to cultivate your own personal growth and transformation process, the more tools you can have in your handbag, so to speak, about learning more about yourself and the culture that you grew up in, family systems. It could be the Enneagram. It could be emotionally healthy spirituality. There's so many wonderful tools out there right now to help highlight that transformative process, because I think the more I am transformed, I'm not as easily triggered. My husband's, I don't react to him, or he's triggered by me, because we both have different lenses that we're looking through and different approaches.
Yep.
And it seems to come up a lot when we were parenting.
Yep.
And I look back and I think, wow, I wish we would have had those tools at that time. They would have been so helpful. I know so much more about myself. And I know so much more about why you said those things, or why you approached it that way. I didn't understand it. It wasn't wrong. It was just a different lens that you're looking through, and I get why you were looking through that lens.
Right.
I have context now. So I think that piece of parenting, I think sometimes we just get into it. We don't have those. We're not thinking about that so much, and then we get into these situations where there's the conflict about how we're both approaching it. So there's that I was thinking about. The other piece of just then obviously carving out that time to cultivate and to be able to process and to make sure that we're on the same page, which let's try to do that behind closed doors and
Right.
figure out what we need to talk about, and then be able to come back as a unified front, which always doesn't work, because sometimes we have those conversations in front of the kids.
Yeah.
And yet, I will say that I was just saying this to my husband the other day. Even in the midst of having hard conversations where they saw us in disagreement,
Right.
there's always an opportunity to model something healthy in that too.
Yes.
We are disagreeing, but we love each other, and it's okay. And I think that piece of being able to, again, model our humanity and being able to find a way to show conflict resolution in healthy
Yes.
ways, in honoring and ultimately coming to that place again of love and respect is
Right.
real when it shows the fact that we're working through conflict. This is life, and it's messy.
Yes.
And that's so important, because your kids are going to grow up and they're going to bring that into their relationships, and they're going to bring what's in modeled to them
Yes.
into how they raise their kids and how
Yes.
they interact with others in relationships. So seeing that is vulnerable, but it's also important, because they learn that conflict is okay, and it can be done in a way where there is love and respect and safety in that.
I think you can also heal in yourself and in your partner some of those things, that those traumas that you did bring into your relationship to one another and into parenting, the triggers that you do have as you wrestle and you work through them, and you become more refined through the process. I know there are things that I have been able to work through and heal some of the past things that I had perceived as a child, but I now see differently as an adult. And I would, I don't know if my husband's experienced the same thing, but I would hope, as I have mothered our kids, that maybe that has healed some things for him as well. Take me back to you before your children. How did you find out you were pregnant? And do you remember what was running through your mind when you first found out?
Sure, I want to answer this one for me. I don't know.
Yeah. Take me
Real.
back to you before you had children. How did you find out you were pregnant? And do you remember what was running through your mind when you first found out? I'll share mine. It's so our first pregnancy was not in our plans. It was a surprise. The best surprise of our life, Grace. So I was fresh out of college. I had just got my first teaching job. I was in the classroom for a month and felt horrible and was laying across my boss's desk trying to write a note to her as to why I needed to go home and that I probably had a vitamin deficiency that was rearing its ugly head probably. And she walks in and finds me on her desk and she's like, "What is wrong with you?" I'm like, "I don't know, something, probably a vitamin deficiency." And she's like, "You're going to go take an hour to take a pregnancy test and then you'll come back." And I'm like, that's so dumb. So dumb. So then I went to my sister-in-law's house. My husband was out of town and I took a pregnancy test and it was positive. And I spent a good long time crying. That was not in my plan. And my brain was breaking. And then my sister-in-law was crying because she was so excited and she was so happy for me. And so she reminded me that children are a gift and joy. And then I called my husband and he also had to remind me, this is a very good thing. This will be great. And it took me a few months to figure out that this was a good thing and that it would be great. And it has been the greatest privilege of my life to be the mom to my daughter, Grace. She is everything that I've ever wished for myself. And somehow she just personifies it and walks in confidence and beauty and gentleness and kindness to other people. And we are never not amazed at who she's becoming and who she proves herself to be time and time again.
That's beautiful.
My husband and I were definitely planning and had been trying for a while, but it was really fun the way that we found out I was pregnant. We were living on the East Coast in Connecticut at the time and had just spent the week prior with my sister-in-law who was visiting with her 3 kids who were, I think 5, 3, and 1 at the time in New York City. And we were there because my sister-in-law is an incredible writer and she won the first prize in a writing contest and they flew her out to New York to be a part of this conference. But she had 3 kids. And so we said, we're in Connecticut, let us help you. And so she was in New York City for a whole week with just her 1-year-old and would like pass her 1-year-old off to my mother-in-law like while she was in sessions. And my husband, Sean, and I were solely in charge of our niece and nephew who were 5 and 3 for a full week in New York City. Hotel room and everything.
Yeah.
They slept with us. We ran around New York in Manhattan and we were solely in charge of them. There were like 2 hours where they like saw their mom and she was like, "Okay, bye." And so we had so much time with our nieces and nephews before, but that was our first like, oh, this is kind of what parenting is like. And it was so fun. We had such a blast. We were so ready for it to be this crazy challenge. And it really went super smoothly for being in the largest city in the world with 2 very young children without their parents. But we ended up coming back to Connecticut and they stayed with us for a couple days and I was just so tired. And I assumed it was because I had been running around for a week with 2 small children.
It's probably a vitamin deficiency.
Yeah, probably a vitamin deficiency, yeah. But the last night before they flew back to the West Coast, my niece, Abby, who was 5, had asked that I be the one to put her to bed. And so I got to be the one to lie in bed with her and have her fall asleep. And I just remember thinking, like, I want this so badly. I know it's the middle of the night. My HCG levels will be so low, but let's just take a pregnancy test for kicks and giggles. And so I took a pregnancy test at like 9 p.m. at night. It's the worst time to take a pregnancy test. And it came back positive. And so I got to call Sean in with me and have a moment. And then I was able to share then and there with my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law the good news. And they were so happy. And they got, that was their send-off back to the West Coast. But it was just such a fun culmination of, are we ready for this? We are. And good thing, because it's coming. So.
Look at each other.
Yeah. Do you want to go?
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, mine was really unexpected. I was still in college. I was playing college basketball at the time, and I was headed into my senior season. And so yeah, I had kind of an inkling. I was like really sick at practice and vitamin deficient. Very tired. Very tired.
Gets you every
I
time.
thought I was just out of shape, but no, I was really tired. And yeah, so I took a pregnancy test, and then I took about 7 more. And yeah, I found out I was having a baby, and life has been better ever since. Yeah, so it has been just the single most important moment of my life. And I didn't even understand like how much better life was gonna be. And yeah, so it's been just a true blessing. God continues to bless us, and yeah, I don't know why I'm humbled, but yeah.
Seems very brave
Yeah.
at the time.
I was really scared. Yeah, I was really scared. Yeah, and I mean, honestly, the first thing that my roommate said was like, "What are you gonna do?" And so yeah, that was a very pivotal moment. And I know that God's grace will cover anything, any decision. I know that to be true. But it was a very strong voice that was like, Kiana, come back. Like, come back to me. And that was, that becoming a mom and in the way that I did is like really solidified my faith and my trust in the Lord. And I know everybody doesn't have this like strong, like, yes, this is the moment. And faith can be formed and shaped in peaks and valleys and all these different things. But yeah, if I were to, say like, when was the day you became a Christian? Like, absolutely that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's just, you just think about the whole metaphor, being reborn and the birth and all of that, all in one, right? It's profound.
You're such a good mom, Kiana.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're all doing it. We're doing the thing.
Yeah, I don't really think I really remember. I think we were ready. We waited for about 7 years, and I can't really kind of put the actual day or I just know that we were at a point where it's like, okay, we're ready. So, when I found I was pregnant, it was an exciting day, and it still continues to be. So mine's very anticlimactic in terms of, a marker, but never look back, obviously, right?
I think when you see their little face for the first time, all of those doubts that you had about, it doesn't mean you don't still have doubts, but the doubts, especially for the unplanned pregnancies that you had in those moments of like, what is about to happen. And then you meet them, and it just is so insignificant compared to what's happening as you hold your baby for the first time. And I would assume doubts in life, if you were to focus on the face of God, would be so much more insignificant. Like, if you look at those pivotal moments and you think now as you rock your baby girl to sleep at night, like, those doubts were so silly. And even more if we grab the face of God and look into his face and let all of those doubts about whatever, motherhood and parenthood and relationships and work, just fade away.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
I don't do it very often, but I should.
Walking reminders.
Yeah, they are.
Mm-hmm.
They really are.
Thanks for watching this table talk discussion on Mother's Day. I hope you were inspired by the faith of the moms in this video. More videos like this one are coming, so be sure and subscribe to our channel and be on the lookout for more to come. May God bless you and keep you and cause his face to shine on you as you lean into his presence each and every day. Happy Mother's Day.